Good morning everyone. Kapwa ko Filipino, magbasa tayo ng ating sariling history guys. History of the Filipino people by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Today is 14 March 2023. Happy birthday Daryl anak. God bless you. History of the Filipino people part 6, the Third Republic. Topic number 26. The recognition of the tao. The recognition of the tao, the success of the Quirino administration in breaking the back of the massive Hukbalahap movement fulfilled one of the promises of President Quirino, namely the restoration of peace and order. In these peace campaigns, he found in his Secretary of National Defense Ramon Magsaysay an able and honest man who, with the President's moral and financial backing, brought about an official change of attitude toward the problem of dissidents, regarded as plain banditry, compounded of communism. The Hukbalahap movement, which was in essence agrarian in nature, lost its glamour when Secretary Magsaysay came to them with an open heart and convinced many of them that their future lay in peace and with honor. With the help of trained public relations men, Magsaysay projected himself into the national scene as the friend of the tao. In 1953, having been glamorized at the expense of the president, he ran for the highest office of the land and was elected with convincing majority. He turned the barrios, gave an ear to the plaints of the common men, promised to uplift their condition, and built artisan walls and feeder roads to the barrios. He was at the height of his popularity when he died in an accident. Vice President Carlos P. Garcia served the last 8 months of Magsaysay and was elected in 1957. The Tao in history. The common man, popularly known as the Tao in Tagalog, has been since Spanish times the object of ridicule, contempt, and at best pity. He has been the victim of injustices, brutality, and all sorts of unamiable barbarism. But like the carabao that symbolizes him, he suffers all those with abundant patience and amiable tolerance. In all difficult undertakings, as in Spanish pacification campaigns and expeditions to foreign lands, and the American campaigns against the Muslims, and in the Filipino participation in World War II, he has been a beast of burden, the backbone of the nation. His voice has nevertheless been unheard in all matters that pertain to the national welfare. He has unlimited duties, but his rights have been circumscribed either by property qualifications or by literacy requirements. During election time, his role has been passive. During the Spanish period, he had no vote but paid burdensome taxes nevertheless. During the American and the Filipino periods, he raised and still raises food for the nation, but has been ignored by those in authority. Nobody has seemed to think of him. The life he leads has been the life his ancestors led. There has been since the American occupation a little change in his earning capacity, but his purchasing power has remained the same comparatively speaking, so that actually there has been negligible change for the better in his way of life. For most 400 years he had lived the life of the dumb beast of burden. His grievances accumulated, and when a leader came around to remind him of his destitution, he unburdened himself by grasping anything within reach and shedding his blood for his redemption. Those in power have looked upon this resort to arms as an aberration, a pure lunacy and an attempt to seize the authority of the state by illegal means. No one in the government ever thought of honestly examining the causes of his discontent. It was enough that he took up arms against those in power to condemn him as dissident, bandit, and highway robber. Invariably, swift punishment is meted out to him to teach him a lesson in social cohesion, which means conformity in all respects with that the upper classes decide. The result of such a policy has been the degradation of the tao and his acquisition of habits of thought that spell negligence, indolence, and bahala na attitude, a fatalism augmented by ignorance and religious fanaticism. The presidential election of 1953. Such in brief is the history of the tao. Accustomed to being ignored, he was resigned to his fate and adopted an attitude of let alone in political and social matters. When a politician came around to harangue him with rosy promises, he just smiled and said, "Oh, he's another of those fellows," and refused to be drawn into the vortex of politics. For he knew that politicians were of the same hue and build. They came to the barrios to pay their respects only during election time, in order to get some votes. He knew that the politicians depended more on the urban voters than on the rural ones, and so he struck an attitude of indifference. For 5 decades since the American occupation, the tao had remained voiceless and uninfluential, and then Magsaysay came upon the scene. It is doubtful whether, as some of his public relations men contended, Magsaysay was by nature a man whose heart always bled for the tao. There is the probability that during his tenure as Secretary of National Defense, he saw as no man the common language and convinced him to his sincere desire to uplift his condition. The result of the election showed that Magsaysay was right. The fate of any election depended on the tao, not on the sophisticated voter. Properly exploited the vote of the tao, decided the election. Magsaysay became president on the strength of the tao vote and the material help of the Americans who backed him up to the hilt. For the first time, the tao realized his strength and importance in national politics. Magsaysay, charismatic leadership. Magsaysay's charismatic leadership. So, charismatic siya, guys. True to his promise, Magsaysay worked hard to make the tao a man in his community. He adhered his administration to the urgent demands of rural affluence. To be really secure, he said, a country must assure for its citizens the social and economic conditions that would enable them to live in decency, free from ignorance, disease, and want. Young, enthusiastic, and fired with a messianic fervor, Magsaysay enlisted the help not only of the governmental agencies but also the civic organizations in the vast undertaking of bringing freedom and progress to our barrios. Thus, he approached the rural problem along 3 lines. Number 1, the improvement of the land tenure system with land resettlement thrown in for good measure. Number 2 is a term credited to the peasants, the building of roads and other facilities for the benefit of the rural folk, and giving technical advice to the farmers on how to improve farm operations. And number 3, an intensive community development with self-help as the basic factor. As a first step toward the realization of these objectives, Magsaysay had Congress pass the Agricultural Tenancy Act in 1954, which provides for greater protection to the tenants by granting them the freedom to choose the system of tenancy under which they would want to work. The implementation of this act was accomplished with the establishment of the Agricultural Tenancy Commission and the Court of Agrarian Relations whose main function is to settle satisfactory and promptly all tenancy disputes. Magsaysay believed that an important measure in the land system was to purchase or expropriate large estates for distribution to their occupants or to the landless. But this objective was not implemented owing mainly to lack of funds. Nevertheless, some public lands were distributed to qualified settlers. During the first year of Magsaysay administration, 28,000 land patents covering 241,000 hectares were issued to settlers. The following year, the number increased to 33,075. Agricultural 32,075 guys. Agricultural lots were distributed to landless applicants which numbered for him. So the potential strength of the mass of taos of the hinterland, and so he directed his plain language speeches to them. It was probably during his barrio-to-barrio campaigns that he realized, as nobody in the government realized, the pitiable condition of the taos who lacked the necessary leadership to make their voices heard. It is probable, too, that Tarok's experience with the common men and the influence he exerted over them gave Magsaysay the immediate inspiration for taking up the cause of the Tao. At any rate, Magsaysay, having projected himself into the minds of the masses as the man of the people, thanks to the active participation of the American Central Intelligence Agency, secretly affiliated with the Nacionalista Party. He was a card-holding liberal before, but remained a member of Guerrero's cabinet. This setup was advantageous to him, for as a token liberal, he continued to remain Secretary of National Defense, and so he could go around from barrio to barrio to campaign for peace and order at the same time make the Tao feel his omnipresence. On the other hand, as Nacionalista, he enjoyed the confidence and faith of the leading men of this party. There was rampant graft and corruption, and the Tao, more than anybody, was deeply affected by the rottenness of society and the sagging economy. There were therefore general dissatisfaction and grumbling against the Quirino administration, and except for Magsaysay, the men around the president were all suspect in the eyes of the public. The gambling against the administration increased in tempo, and when the proper opportunity arrived, Magsaysay resigned his cabinet position and openly became a nationalista. Since the armed forces had faith and confidence in him, the leaders of the Nacionalista Party, particularly Senators Jose Pilarel and Claro M. Recto, both strong contenders for nomination to the presidency, thought that they should forego their ambition and choose Magsaysay, who could be relied upon, insofar as the army was concerned, to neutralize what was then believed to be the cheating propensity and power of the Liberal Party. Magsaysay was nominated by the National Party and its presidential standard bearer. He would run against his former chief. Magsaysay's presidential campaign was characterized by his emphasis on the barrio and the Tao. His experience as Secretary of National Defense told him that the hitherto neglected Tao was the determinant in politics. He acted and spoke like him and shared his humble meals. He talked to the Tao in the mahaba pala to guys. He talked to the Tao in the 18,824 in 1954 and 23,578 in 1955. Such statistics show how fast the agencies of the government work under the charismatic leadership of Magsaysay, and how the leader of the nation could do something tangible to relieve the peasant of his onerous burden. Mali ako ng interpretation sa akala ko charismatic is religion. Sorry ha. Okay, ulitin ko. Such statistics show how fast the agencies of the government work under the charismatic leadership of Magsaysay, and how the leader of the nation could do something tangible to relieve the peasant of his onerous burden. Nung mabasa ko kasi ang title kanina, nag-conclude kaagad ako. Okay, this was not all, however. The National Resettlement and Rehabilitation Administration, NARA, resettled in 1955 some 8,800 families and 22 settlements projects to encourage landless settlers in occupying and improving public lands. The government surveyed some 401,425 hectares in 1955. Some of these settlements apparently are prospering, but others, like the Akil Settlement Project in Bulacan, are a complete failure owing to the lack of government supervision and active help in promoting the welfare of the settlers. It is desired to make the rural areas a part of the national community in which the hitherto ignorant and poverty-stricken people could take active participation in community and national life. Magsaysay thought of extending barrio roads and constructing new ones in order to link the rural district to the urban centers. In 1954, some 252 kilometers of new roads were constructed. This number increased to 565 kilometers the following year. Such an improvement had the effect of increasing the mobility of the rural population and of making it easy for the peasant to market his products. Irrigation projects were expanded, and agricultural experts were sent to the barrios to instruct the farmers and settlers in improved means of agricultural. Farmers were given loans on credit through the Agricultural Credit and Cooperative Financing Administration, ACFA. This government agency helps the farmers in marketing their products and in giving them warehousing facilities through their cooperatives marketing associations, known as the Farmers Cooperative and Marketing Association, FACOMAS, were organized throughout the islands. There are hundreds of FACOMAS throughout the country, with a membership of more than 300,000. Loans to the FACOMA members were granted to help them in marketing their products. During his little more than 3 years in office, Magsaysay preoccupied himself with the welfare of the tao. It was almost an obsession with him. Improvement in health was one of his main preoccupations. He ordered the construction of artificial wells and water systems in order to give the rural folk clean, potable water. In the briskness of these artificial wells, some of them did not work out as expected. Many of the wells unfortunately did not yield a single drop of water and became, insofar as the barrios were concerned, a sort of decorative monument to Magsaysay's boundless enthusiasm. And the meanwhile, Magsaysay's restless spirit that he was hope and jumped from barrio to barrio, clasping general hands of embracing its tao. There was something melodramatic in this, but the tao, hitherto neglected and ignored by high government officials, now felt a certain degree of composure and cocksureness. To the tao, Magsaysay was his symbol, his guardian angel. For the first time in his life, the tao became aware of his importance. There was born in him a new sense of confidence and faith. Thus originated the myth of Magsaysay. As in all myths, the Magsaysay myth sank into the collective consciousness of the masses and became the cornerstone of a mass resurgence. Henceforth, the tao believed he could do no wrong. Bukas na itong The Spoiled Masses, guys. Bye everyone. God bless.